Hi there, everyone, and welcome to the Daily Gardener, and thank you for listening. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling. It's November 11th. Today, we celebrate a botanist who gave us one of my favorite quotes about plant breeding. And we'll also remember the fantastically driven woman who dreamed of providing blueberries to the nation, and her dream came true. We'll review some words about November by Lucy Maud Montgomery, the author of the Anne of Green Gables series, as well as a charming quote about the sun by Galileo. And we'll grow that garden library today with a book on floral arranging with foraged cuttings, and it's both artistic and modern. And then we'll wrap things up with a fascinating letter from a Danish botanist working in Calcutta. Just a reminder that if you're listening to the show while you're at home and you have a smart speaker, just go ahead and ask Alexa or Google to play the latest episode of the Daily Gardener podcast. And she will. It's just that easy. Don't forget, you can send your garden greetings here to the show, and I'll read them out on a gardener greetings segment. You can share your garden pictures, stories, birthday wishes, and so forth. Just go ahead and email them to me at jennifer@thedailygardener.org. That's jennifer@thedailygardener.org. And then finally, I wanted to share that in the Facebook group today, I posted an article that was shared in Hunker, and it was written by Victoria Lee Blackstone, and it was a very nice piece about how to grow dahlias. So if you're curious about that and want to know more, that was a nice introductory piece for dahlias. Now, if you'd like to check out any of my curated news articles or original blog posts for yourself, you're in luck, because I share all of it with the listener community in the free Facebook group for the show. It's called the Daily Gardener Community. So there's never a need for you to take notes or track down links. The next time you're on Facebook, just search for Daily Gardener Community, where you'd search for a friend and request to join. I'd love to meet you in the group. Here's today's brevities. Today is the birthday of the Belgian physicist, chemist, botanist, horticulturist, and pomologist Jean-Baptiste van Mons, who was born on this day, November 11th, 1765. The name of the game for Jean-Baptiste was selective breeding for pears. Selective breeding happens when humans breed plants to develop particular characteristics by choosing the parent plants to make the offspring. Check out the patience and endurance that was required as Jean-Baptiste describes his work. I have found this art to consist in regenerating in a direct line of descent and as rapidly as possible and improving variety, taking care that there be no intervals between the generations. To sow, to resow, to sow again, to sow perpetually. In short, to do nothing but sow is the practice to be pursued and which cannot be departed from. And this is the whole secret of the art I have employed. It's one of my favorite quotes on plant breeding: to sow, to resow, to sow again, to sow perpetually. In short, to do nothing but sow. Jean-Baptiste van Mons produced a tremendous amount of new pear cultivars in his breeding program, something north of 40 incredible species over his lifetime. In fact, the Bosque and d'Anjou pears that we know today are van Mons' legacies. And today is the anniversary of the death of the Queen of Blueberries, Elizabeth Coleman White, who died on this day, November 11th, 1954. Elizabeth grew up on her dad's cranberry farm in the Pine Barrens of Burlington County, New Jersey. When she was a little girl, Elizabeth would take walks to pick wild blueberries because you couldn't buy blueberries in stores. Over time, Elizabeth began to wonder about cultivating blueberries as a crop. Keeping her family's cranberry farm in mind, Elizabeth figured blueberries would make the perfect off-season crop. Cranberries and blueberries both grow in highly acidic soil. To get started, Elizabeth asked local blueberry pickers to bring her the plants with the biggest berries, and then Elizabeth would transplant them into her father's field. She wrote, "I used to call them swamp huckleberries and thought a blueberry half an inch diameter huge. They grew luxuriantly in the margins of our cranberry bogs. And as a girl, I used to dream of a field full of blueberry bushes. I knew it was a wild dream." In 1910, the chief botanist at the USDA, Frederick Colville, was also working on blueberries at his summer home in New Hampshire. When Elizabeth read about his efforts, she reached out, and the two of them worked out a deal. Elizabeth would grow the berries, and Frederick would perfect the science. Together, Elizabeth and Frederick successfully crossbred the largest New Jersey blueberries with the largest New Hampshire blueberries. And the rest, as they say, is history. Elizabeth said, "My old dream was but a faint shadowing of the possibilities. Now I dream of cultivated blueberries shipped by the trainload, blueberry specials to every part of the country." It took Elizabeth 5 years to develop the very first blueberry crop. Elizabeth's success increased the value of the New Jersey pine districts around her farm from 50 cents an acre to $500 an acre. Elizabeth's first harvest yielded 21 bushels of berries and netted $114. Today, the United States grows nearly 700 million pounds of cultivated wild blueberries, and the annual revenue is around $80 million. Elizabeth was very creative. After noticing how the Whitman Chocolate Company packaged their chocolates, Elizabeth came up with the idea to use cellophane to protect and market her blueberries. The cellophane made it possible for people to see her blueberries right through the packaging. And Whitman's ended up partnering with Elizabeth, helping her source the cellophane she needed from France. And here's a little known fact about Elizabeth Coleman White. She was a champion of native plants. After she successfully fought to save the American holly, she helped found the Holly Society of America in 1947. In Unearthed Words, here's an excerpt from Anne of Avonlea by the Canadian writer and author of the Anne of Green Gables series, Lucy Maud Montgomery. November is such a disagreeable month, as if the year had suddenly found out that she was growing old and could do nothing but weep and fret over it. This year is growing old gracefully, just like a stately old lady who knows she can be charming even with gray hair and wrinkles. We've had lovely days and delicious twilights. And finally, here's a quote about the sun from Galileo, the Italian astronomer, physicist, engineer, mathematician, and philosopher. The sun, with all those planets revolving around it and dependent on it, can still ripen a bunch of grapes as if it had nothing else in the universe to do. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, Foraged Flora by Louisa Roebuck and Sarah Lonsdale. This book came out in 2016, and the subtitle is A Year of Gathering and Arranging Wild Plants and Flowers. An artist and floral designer, Louisa Roebuck lives in Ojai, and she's created floral installations from foraged and gleaned materials for clients like Vivian Westwood, John Baldessari, and Alice Waters. Just flipping through foraged flora conveys the striking skill and intuition that Louisa brings to floral work. It's really quite stunning. Now, what I love about studying Louisa Roebuck's pieces is how she deftly accomplishes each step in the process. Louisa is a master forager, and her artistic eye guides every stem and flower. In this book, Louisa shares a modern twist on flower arranging, and I love that she narrows her palette to locally foraged plants and flowers. Her creations are on a spectrum from humble to showpiece. Louisa lets aspects of her environment play along in her work. She leverages materials that are in season. She looks at plants at every stage of their development, and she pays close attention to rock star natives. This book is 272 pages of authentic foraged beauty that can be found no matter where you hang your hat. You can get a copy of Foraged Flora by Louisa Roebuck and Sarah Lonsdale and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for around $15. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. On this day, the Danish surgeon and botanist Nathaniel Wallach wrote William Jackson Hooker at Kew in London. Nathaniel served as the superintendent of East India Company's botanical garden in Calcutta, India. From his post in Calcutta, Nathaniel was preparing a shipment for Hooker, and it was made up of over 300 ferns. And just to illustrate how the early botanists are just like everyday people, check out this quote. In his letter, Nathaniel Wallach was begging Hooker to visit him, and he wrote, "Can't you come over this or next month? Do try, I entreat you. 1 month of hard work with you would be like 2 years to me." Well, while he was in Calcutta, Nathaniel wrote A Flora of Asia. And today, the Nathaniel Wallach Memorial Lecture occurs every year at the Indian Museum in Calcutta on Foundation Day. Nathaniel founded the museum in 1814. Nathaniel didn't stay in Calcutta. He spent the twilight of his life in London. He's buried in Kensal Green Cemetery in London, alongside many prominent botanists like James Edward Smith, a founder of the Linnean Society in London, John Claudius Loudon, the Scottish writer, the Scottish botanist Sir James MacGregor, Archibald Menzies, the surgeon and botanist, the discoverer of Brownian motion, Robert Brown, and David Don, the Linnean Society's librarian and the very first professor of botany at King's College London. He's in good company. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced in lovely Wyoming, Minnesota with the help of Paige Mance, Brooke Bierbaum, Kiana Rayleigh, Maddie Doyle, Natalie Decker, and Eric Begay. You can find The Daily Gardener on all your favorite social media. You can follow the show on Instagram, and listeners always have a standing invitation to join the free Facebook group for the show. Just search for Daily Gardener Community the next time you're on Facebook and request to join. All the stories and books that are featured on the show can be found over at thedailygardener.org, thedailygardener.org. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for my free Friday newsletter. Last but not least, you can share your own gardener greetings on the show by emailing me at jennifer@thedailygardener.org. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling, and as always, have a great day in the garden, and we'll see you tomorrow.